ain't a podcast that's flyer. You are now tuned in to Direct Misfire. Benson, Hugh, and Sellick. Tell everyone to tune in. Let's roll the dice. Let me show you what we doing. A fantasy war game. Play it smart and you win. What you know about the crystal pen and the retribution? Hero, giants, and knights galore. It's an adventure. This is Kings of War. Let's go.
Hello champs, and welcome once again to another Direct Misfire Missive. I am your host Benson, and joining me today as always is Sellick.
Hello there.
As well as Hugh.
Hey guys.
As we discuss the winners and losers of the latest Clash of Kings updates. So pull up a seat, grab a drink, and let's get into it. Alright gentlemen, the latest Clash of Kings is here as part of the Halpi's Rift campaign book. What are our thoughts? What are we doing here?
We're going to go through the changes in Clash of Kings 21 one by one to identify the winners and the losers. We're going to start all armies at 0. We're going to be using a plus or minus 2 scale in 0.5 increments, where a plus 2 is a major positive change, a 0 is very negligible, and a negative 2 naturally is an extreme nerf. We'll run through special rule changes, spell changes, irregular to regular updates, changes to each of the different armies, and finally we'll go through the new heroes as well. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is the ignore cover. So previously this would just ignore cover as it sort of mentions, but now if you're half in the cover, you do get that -1 to hit.
It should be ignores most cover.
Yeah, it should be like, it should just be called bombard or something, or like, you know, just a different word that isn't ignores cover. Because I read that rule and then the whole rule is about how it doesn't actually ignore cover.
So when we have a look at some of the armies that have a lot of this rule, so I'm thinking Kingdoms of Men, Dwarves, Abyssal Dwarfs, naturally. Goblins, and to a lesser extent, I think Undead and Empire of Dust as well. And that's all that's really coming to mind for me.
I think it's a minor change because the unit has to be within difficult terrain. So it's a bit more specific in that. So I think for most cases, it's still going to be ignoring cover.
I agree. I think it basically only gives the opponent a bit of counterplay, which I think is how it's intended. So it's not like a straight nerf. It's more like maybe you need to choose your targets a bit more carefully, because if your opponent is smart and, you know, they're a really important unit that maybe it has an objective, or maybe it just is a critical unit for whatever other reason, they've popped that in terrain because they want to give you the -1 to hit. That seems fair, reasonable, and it should be a counterplay to War Machines, because you don't have much other counterplay when you don't have a War Machine killer. No. Like if you've got a bunch of slow units and you're marching forwards, you just kind of have to cop the War Machine. So it's nice to have some sort of ability to mitigate it against certain units. And the reality is, I think most of the time the War Machines will just shoot something else.
And those catapults really aren't going to want to shoot at anything that's in terrain because you're hitting on 6s.
Just a 0.5 across the board?
Yeah.
I think so.
I'm pretty happy with that. So with that sort of major rule change, we do jump into the spells. So there's 3 main spells that are impacted by this. And the first one is Hex. Benson's favourite Hex. I know that he takes it in every single list that he's got. So previously what it would do, you would Hex it. If they cast a spell, all their positive hits, they would take 2 damage but not have to take a test. So, and it only impacts spellcaster level 1+. So that still remains, that damage component. The only change now is that if you are hexed, you have to halt or change facing to be able to cast in the next phase.
And then they still take that damage.
So what do we think be a positive or a negative to any of the armies?
Well, Hex is still rubbish, so it's not much of a change. There'll be very few instances against Undead where the opponent's Necromancer or Morgoth or whatever won't be in a position to begin with that it needs to move and cast.
Quite, to be fair, a lot of their spells are fairly short range, the ones that really matter, and especially the ones that really matter against Hex, so like your Surges and things like that. So it could be that they need to move and cast, but I'm right there with you, man. Like, this is a nerf against Undead.
If you want to buff it, make it affect Spellcaster 0.
Yeah, very annoying. I agree with you entirely. There's so many Spellcaster 0 things, and they feel as common as Spellcasters themselves. But unless you're playing a tournament where 50% of your opponents are likely to be Undead, which you might be in your current meta, but if you're not, you're still not going to take Hex anyway. So this is, I don't even think it's 0.5. I actually think it's nothing.
it's nothing.
Okay, so you don't think the pinning down element that they've sort of included here is going to change too much?
No, I think it's far too specific.
It still gives your opponent a choice. Think of the hoops you got to jump through. So you need to be a spellcaster of more than 0. You need to have a spell that's relevant. You need for the spell to be out of range anyway. And then you need to care.
And they need to have a spell that has a decent amount of successes to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then you still have to follow it up with another attack to cause that nerve roll.
Yeah.
Yep.
So it's a total and utter potato.
So I think I think what we're saying is that Hugh loves Hex
just as much as I do.
Just as much as you do.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, it's obviously Surge builds that are mostly impacted by this. So it's the Undeads, your Sylvan Kins, your Empire of Dust, particularly now that Soul Snare, which we'll talk about in a little bit, can now be hexed, and Herd and Nature. So those are the ones that can have a Surge build. What we're saying is that they're not nerfed enough by this change. It's the hex change isn't attractive enough to even quantify a neg 0.5.
No.
So we will move straight on to Enthrall. So the only change to Enthrall was previously you couldn't cast it on the same target twice. Now you can.
There's not many that... You're not going to have very many armies that have multiple Enthrall.
Exactly. So it's Nightstalkers, Trident Realms, and I think Forces of the Abyss can do it. And I think Undead can, potentially.
It's more than I thought.
Yeah, it's actually more than I thought as well. So the Nightstalkers is actually like, you've got to make this weird build to even be able to make it work.
Yeah, I tried making that for a upcoming tournament, a Windblast Enthrall build.
Yeah.
It's a lot of points to put into it. But I guess it's okay that they removed that line, because it was a bit weird that you could pull units to you. I mean, you could push units away from you with Windblast multiple times, but not with Enthrall. Why was that?
And Windblast was like more prevalent than Enthrall to begin with.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also was not powerful. It's not like it's like, man, oh no, Windblast army, I'm screwed. Yeah. So my summary thoughts on Enthrall, I don't really care, to be honest.
Yeah, it's nice. It doesn't change anything.
I've never taken it before, and I don't feel particularly inclined to take it again. I think it could be a powerful ability. I think it's cool, but I don't think this change mattered to anyone too much.
It just feels like this is how it should have been.
Yeah, I'd have to go back through and have a look at exactly who's got multiple castles. I know that definitely Nightstalkers and definitely
I think they're the
Trident
big
Realms.
Nightstalkers, yeah.
But why I think Trident Realms probably over the others is because they've got the ability to surge as well. The others, all the others don't. So Nightstalkers and Forces of the Abyss, they don't have it at the moment.
Yeah, but I guess you can enthrall, and then surge into the front.
That's what I'm thinking. It does open a little bit of surge shenanigans. Yeah.
So plus 0.5 to the armies that can do it.
But just before we move on, does Undead have it only on that vampire lady? Is that the only one?
Yep, she's the only one. So they can't do it twice. And the only reason, and people will be like, why is it even mentioning it during this thing when it can only cast it once, is because there is, in the same book, there is an item now that can give you Enthrall 6, I think. So there could be a potential to have 2. But it is an option up to everyone else if they want to be able to use that in a tournament setting. So that's okay. We'll put in Trident Realms, Forces of the Abyss, and Nightstalkers as the ones that get a 0.5 positive on that one. We'll move on to the next and the final spell change, and that's Mind Fog. So the only change now is that it gives Shattering as well before you do the test. So an extra neg 1.
It's okay. I still think if you can cast Mind Fog, you can cast Lightning Bolt, and if you cast Lightning Bolt, you're causing damage, which is the effect of Shattering anyway.
But Lightning Bolt's 24 inches range, Mind Fog's 36. It's about getting that thing at the back line that you can't quite hit with anything else. And the idea of giving it like that extra chance to rout the opponent, I like this change. I think it's another one a bit like Hex. So I think this is a fine change, but again, it's one of those ones that just too negligible for even a 0.5
What I
change.
think would have been nice is if it had an extra shattering per successful dice on the spell.
That would definitely make Nightstalkers amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting actually, because then it doesn't actually do damage.
But I don't think I've seen Mind Fog used at all in all the games that I've played. Maybe once or twice, which did nothing.
Yeah, not that you'd pay for. So I've used definitely Mind
Correct.
Fog previously in Nightstalker lists, but only because I didn't have a Lightning Bolt candidate and I could throw out a Mind Fog just to get a test.
And then you need a 10 or 12 or 10 or 11 to try and take something off. Yeah. 0.5 buff. That's okay. It's nice.
So a
It works.
0.5 buff to who? Nightstalkers?
To anyone who can take it, really.
Yeah, there's a couple of those that will be impacted positively by that Mind Fog shattering, so that's pretty handy.
Yep. I give it a 0.5.
The next we've got is the Irregular. So these are previously irregular units, so that you couldn't ally them in and you couldn't unlock or get them as unlocks, and they've made quite a few changes. So the first one that came through is the Elves. So they had a lot of Irregulars. Obviously, I've ranted about it enough. War Chariots are now regular. Drakon Riders are regular, massive. And Glade Stalkers are now regular.
Yeah, I guess that's a good change.
Yeah.
All good changes except the Drakon Riders, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see this. This immediately goes to a 1 because of that Drakons. If I take my elf hat off, I think it could even be argued as a 1.5.
I have to agree.
I don't think the Drakon Riders needed to happen because you still got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units that unlock in infantry alone that weren't irregular. Glade Stalkers now upping that to 7.
Yeah, but no one took any of them, you see, so they always struggle for unlock, Spencer.
Yeah,
and
right. Okay.
To be honest, I don't think anyone will take Glade Stalkers again. Still, with this change.
What's wrong with them?
I think they're a good unit. I think that people should consider taking a regiment in their army every now and again. It's not like it's not like it makes them OP. I think that's a superb change. That's just like chef's kiss. And I agree with you, Sellick. I think this is a 1.5.
A 1.5? What do you think, Benson?
Yeah.
So the next one is, and we'll probably get through the next couple pretty quickly. So Empire of Dust, Revenant Chariots are now
0
regular.
Next. Empire of Dust weren't hinging on Revenant Chariots to be able to make some fantastic builds.
I agree, but I think it's nice that they have that as an extra build option and that it might change their builds a bit.
Yeah, I suppose 0.5, yeah. I guess that helps.
Yep, same. Next one is something in your wheelhouse, Benson, and that is Goblins, Fleabag Chariots.
This is a nothing change. Goblins have so many options for unlocks. They don't need it.
But did you ever take Fleabag Chariots?
Nope.
Would you now? Would you take a regiment now just for fun?
Nope.
Right,
it's still a defense 4 14-16 nerve unit. I'd rather just take Fleabag Riders. It's easy to maneuver.
Okay, so even though it does give you the extra options, which is sort of like the 0.5, you're saying that even with this extra option, you're not going to take it?
No. Yeah, I've never struggled with goblins to unlock, so I wasn't hoping, I wish those chariots were not irregular, or were regular, so I could make this army work. No,
okay.
It's nothing.
And the Orcs, so they get the Skulk Raider Chariots.
I think the same thing here.
Yeah.
Orcs have got so many infantry, you're always going to be unlocking stuff.
I agree.
Okay, now the next one, this one here is not something that you're going to ignore. This is Basileans. They get Alohi back regular, and they also get Sisterhood Panther Chariots.
This is similar to Elves in the sense that Alohi are the unit that they really wanted to be regular, that were irregular in the same way as Drakons.
Yeah.
But also, as you said, Sellick, they lost Nimble, right?
Yep.
So that change still matters. So going back to having a heap of these units as being your unlocks is still not going to be as strong as it was last edition, because losing that Nimble is a big deal, especially in like high level games. Not having that Nimble really matters.
And I think with Basileans, unlocks is never really an issue anymore, where I think it was initially until they got the Ogre Palace Guard. So I don't think this is a 1.5 change like it was for the Elves that got 3 unlocks. I think this is just a 1. What do you guys think?
I would have loved to see Ogre Palace Guard get irregular to counteract the fact that these guys have regular. I realise that most ogre-sized units don't have irregular.
Yeah, go the other way around.
You know, it's the Palace Guard thing, right? They're like the super elite of the elite. Like, why is your whole army goddamn Palace Guard and you've got no regular blokes?
What do you think about the chariot change there?
No one cares. Sadly. I care because I really like chariots in Kings of War. I love that all of these ones have changed to regular. I don't think it's going to increase their usage that much, but the fact that it will a little bit, I find pleasing. I think it's great. Awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, it's a +1 bump.
Yeah, I agree as well. So the next one is Forces of Nature and Trident Realms. They now get Naiad Heart Piercers as regular units.
Yep, 0.5 is fine. I think it's a bit better with Trident Realm than Forces of Nature, just because Forces of Nature you'll probably be taking a few hordes of various elementals, whereas you can't really do that with Trident Realm unless you're just sticking with the water. So it helps with Trident Realm more than it does Forces, but I still think it's on that 0.5 level.
Much like Chariots, this is the kind of unit that they had a blanket rule where they're like, well, we don't want to promote gun lines, which I am all for, by the way. Like, I'm all over that like a red hot rash. Correct. We shouldn't be promoting gun lines. So we're going to make shooting units irregular. But in actual fact, they probably should have done it on a more case-by-case basis, because there are some like this one, which doesn't in any way break the game to be regular, and to give them a slight buff and make them more of an option by making them regular. Yeah, fantastic.
And I was taking them before the change, so it just makes my life a little bit easier.
Okay, so I think we're pretty agreed that on Trident Realm and Nature, it's probably a +5.
0.5?
A 0.5, yep.
Yeah.
And
plus 5 is a bit much.
If we could go into more, Trident Realms probably benefit a little bit more. But
yeah,
one that I do think benefit a little bit more is the Forces of the Abyss. So Tortured Souls are now regular, and Flame Bearers also.
Yay. I liked Flame Bearers changes because I can ally them into my Abysall Dwarf army, and because I had a second Ed army where I had Abysall Dwarf with a small demon contingent, like they were kind of praying to them or whatever. And I couldn't do that once third had dropped because Flame Bearers were irregular. Now I can bring them back. They're not great, but at least my army's returned.
Nah, good stuff. So I had this change in as a +1, with the Tortured Souls now being able to take... They still don't unlock because they're a swarm, but a flying Fearless 17 unit with 18 Crushing 1 attacks is pretty fantastic.
Yeah, I think it's on the same level as Basilean, yeah.
Likewise, I think, well, without the egregious change, honestly. Like, I think... changing to the Angels I didn't particularly like, but I have no problem with these.
Alright, so the next one is the Northern Alliance. So they get Pack Hunters now. So these guys now become regular as well. So 155, they've got Piercing 1, only a 12-inch range here with the Javelins as their options. Pretty handy, I think.
Were Northern Alliance struggling with unlocks?
It's not that the Northern Alliance was struggling for unlocks, it's more like this unit simply wasn't taken.
Yeah, 0.5.
Yeah, I had them in as a 0.5 just purely because it gives that little bit of options depending upon the builds that you want. Obviously, it does free up if you want Ice Kin Hunters or other.
Certainly not a nerf. It's not a massive buff, so 0.5.
0.5, yeah. I like it. So the next two I'm going to group up again. So that's the Sylvan Kin and the Twilight Kin. So similar to the Elves, they get their Glade Stalkers unlocked.
0.5.
Yep. So I tend to agree with this one. It does open up an option. It's not a great option if you ask me. But
yeah, if you want to play elves more like elves instead of dragons with elves on them, I'm all over it.
More dragons, I say. And the last change from irregular to regular is in the Varangur list, and that is the Night Raiders. So the Night Raiders previously just didn't really get taken.
I don't even know what Night Raiders are. What are Night Raiders?
Yeah, they're the pack hunters. They're the evil pack hunters.
Yeah, they raid at night, mate.
Oh, right. How do they see what they're throwing javelins at if it's night time?
They're Varangur, that they've got night eyes.
Oh.
They don't actually like to see in the day.
Oh.
I'm pretty sure that's how it goes anyway. Yeah, that's it. I think that's one of their special rules. But yeah, so they're a very similar unit to pack under. So I think it's the same spot, 0.5.
What makes me want to put this over 0.5, but I can never justify it, is purely their Wolf Handler upgrade. So this is where they create their own aura of vicious for Tundra Wolves.
So they run with the wolves. Okay. No, still 0.5.
Still 0.5, yep. So we'll lock it in as a 0.5, and now we will slowly go across into the different armies. The first army that we're going to talk about now is the Abysall Dwarfs. So they have two main changes, and I'll go through the two changes, then we can talk about what the change is. So the first one is the Heavy Mortar. So the Heavy Mortar goes from Piercing 3 down to Piercing 2, and the Hex casters, which could normally just remove the Hex, which is a part of their name, for free and get Weakness 3. Now they have to pay 20 points for Weakness 3.
I think it's a neg 0.5.
Yeah. I'm torn because I wanted the Heavy Mortars to be nerfed very badly. I think they needed it. But 1 Crushing Strength, is it enough? I'm not sure. Probably it is. Like, my gut tells me that it's about right. But what it actually means, let's boil it down to what it means, right? So if you have toughness 5, so instead of being 2+ for a reroll, most of the time you'd be 3+ with a reroll, which is still pretty reliable, but you're going to roll some 2s here and there. So it is actually going to reduce its reliability against those super tough units.
What I don't like is that it's now far too similar to the standard Grog Mortar, because they're both piercing 2. The only difference is one has shattering and an extra attack on its blast for 20 points.
Which is still worth it.
But I still want the heavy mortar to sound like a heavy mortar. I still think it should be punching through a lot of stuff. It should have just been more expensive.
What do we think about the Hexcaster change?
I think it was a needed change for balance terms. It's definitely a nerf because it now makes the Hexcaster 90 points because you're not going to run it with Hex 3 because weakness was actually useful.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good change. It's bad for Abysall Dwarf players, but boo-hoo Abysall Dwarf players. I mean, I've got Abysall Dwarf army. I reckon they're 0.5.
Okay, so are we saying that the Hexcaster change is 0.5 and the Mortar change is 0.5, or both of them together is a 0.5
I think both
change?
together.
Both of them?
Yep.
Okay. The next one is the Basilean change. So we've already spoken about one that really doesn't impact their ability, so that's the Lohai and the Lohai. They can no longer be taken as allies, irrespective of their regular status. But their big one change that they had, and we were seeing it particularly in the last couple of months, is the High Paladin on the Dragon. So they've amended the nerve now to be 17-19, but it now gains Headstrong special rule.
They were previously fearless, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. So they've lost fearless but have gained headstrong. So 2 in 3 chance of being fearless anyway.
Yeah, so that'll be a really relevant change 1/3 of the time that it was in exactly the situation where I'm at it anyway.
Very, very slight nerf.
Like, I mean, this one here was, and there's a couple of these that we're going to talk about that they've sort of given now a waiver value instead of just a dash, but they've given in special rules that almost negate that change.
The rational part of me says that this has been heavily play tested and they've realized it's very slightly OP, and so they've given it a very slight nerf. This is like the Hex change. It's a lot of stuffing around for no real impact.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would still say that this one here is a negative 0.5. Yep. All right, so we'll move on to the next one, which is Dwarfs. They've only got one change, and that's on the Warsmith. So previously, the Warsmith would have an aura that would inspire as well as make all of the war machines elite. And now the Warsmith now gives inspiring to the Warsmith as well as Iron Watch, and it gives them elite as an aura.
Well, the war machines have keywords Warsmith.
Yeah,
the war
that's
engines
it.
have Warsmith, so that's still fine. They just now can do it to Iron Watch, which is good.
Remind me what Iron Watch means. Is that just
Iron Watch are the
handgun
the rifles,
guys and the crossbows as well? Is that correct?
Watch crossbows, yeah.
Yeah, so it's crossbow and handgun units, right?
Yep.
Iron Watch rifles, yeah. Sharpshooters also have Warsmith, so that works.
It's actually quite a significant buff when you think about it, because on regular war machines, you fire 2 or 3 shots. So elite has very limited value.
The dwarves have the flame belcher, which will be running with the rest of the army because it's a short range, and that's got 15 attacks, so the elite will work well with that. Oh, wait, hang on. Battle drillers, Warsmith. Steel behemoths, Warsmith.
Steel behemoths are Warsmiths. They got more shots than you can poke a stick at.
But I think really good value now. 95 points with the Sacred Horn to give a 9-inch bubble of this elite. Like, you can make a really good gun line from this, and I'm going to regret saying that on a podcast.
Yeah, I could see the Sacred Horn being useful, but I mean, gunline players know 95 points where it might get you another almost another regiment of shooty dudes. Certainly a troop. It's not necessarily as good, but no, I think that character's in a really good spot.
Yeah, I think it's great.
So a 1 or a 0.5?
0.5.
0.5? All right, we're going to move on before we think too much of it, because we're going to jump into Empire of Dust. So they've got
a few changes.
4 changes, yeah. So the first one that we're going to see in Undead as well is that Revenant Cav. So they have been increased by 10 points. So they've gone up to 115 points for the troop and 180 points for the regiment. The second change that they've got is the Revenant King on the Undead Great Flying Rim. That is a great long name. So they have had their nerve reduced by 1, but the big thing here is that they've gone up in 15 points on the Flying Rim, so obviously taken a fair bit. The third change is that the Cursed High Priest has had its Drain Life reduced by 1, but it has also had its points reduced, like that point of the upgrade, reduced by 5 points. In addition to that, the Reanimator, I think it's special rule, so that has now been changed. The Reanimator, previously it was you had to target a skeleton unit to be able to make it worthwhile. Now you don't have that limitation, but you need to have skeletons nearby to have it. So you can still increase your drain life and things, as well as your heal, your fireball, and all these other things, but you've got to have skeletons nearby,
so
which is
fine.
pretty good. And the last change is that Soul Snare is now Spellcaster 1. So Benson, you will be able to hex
that
it.
helps. And for those who didn't know what a Soul Snare was, that was a Drain Life 9 War Engine. Yeah.
Yep. So I'm just going to summarize these up in 2 seconds. So Revenant Cav had a little bit of a nerf, price increase.
Yep.
Revenant King on the Flying Worm, reduced nerve, increased cost pretty severely.
Correct.
Cursed the High Priest, reduced Drain Life, decreased points, and also had its special rule, I think, is boosted a tiny little bit, and Soul Snare can be hexed. What do we think?
It's a good change.
That's it.
Yeah.
So what do we think of the neg one?
I agree, neg one, because there's so many of these nerfs. I think, they're well deserved, but yeah, neg one.
Neg one. All right. So the next one is Forces of Nature. So they've had 2 changes. So the first change is the Wilt Father effect that seems to be happening in Clash of Kings. So that is everyone that has a tree herder can now upgrade it to the Wilt Father. We know who this guy is.
He's the organic idol of Shobik.
He is. And the other big change is the avatar of the Green Lady that you probably wouldn't have seen in all of 3rd edition had a 35-point decrease in points. So now becomes a little bit more of an option.
It helps. Just a heal 6 flyer, that's it, for 150 points.
35 points is a lot, man.
That's a big decrease in points. I think she's probably in a good spot now with Fly. I think so. I had this one here as a +1 for all of the nature. I think Green Lady is probably the 0.5, and the Tree Herder now having the Wilt Father, it just provides another option that you can have. While I don't think the Wilt Father's broken, it's definitely an attacking option.
I think the Wilt Father's a bit broken.
I don't think. It's an extra 40 points, that upgrade.
I don't think he's too far broken. I don't think he's the most broken thing in the world, but I think he's just a bit broken. I think this is for me, this is a 1.5.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it's just entirely on the Wilt Father. I don't even care about the Green Lady changes, even though I like them. I think they're great. But as far as the balance is concerned, these changes, let's be honest, overall, they were mostly very small.
Mm-hmm.
There's not many huge disparities as far as I know, and maybe you'll change my mind over the course of this cast, but I don't think there's any +2 changes, which is like the took it too far, really extreme. I think you'll see every competitive nature army with a Wilt Father in it.
There is one other major change to all Wilt Fathers that we're going to talk about. And previously there was this little bit of a slip up, I guess, in the rules, is that you could take the Wilt Father upgrade on your Tree Herder as well as giving it magical items. Now you cannot use magical artifacts as well as the upgrade. I'm saying 1. Hugh's saying 1.5. What are you saying, Benson?
I reckon it's a 1. I still think that's 40 points for a couple of extra. Yeah.
Fair enough.
It's a 1.
Okay. The next one is the Free Dwarfs. Now, these ones, we had these way down the list in our ranking sort of things, and there's this tiny little change in keywords that I think actually has a massive effect. So this is adding the tracker keyword to the Free Dwarf Spear Levy, the Shield Breakers, the Iron Watch Rifles, and the Iron Watch Crossbows. So that's all of their infantry and shooting infantry or ranged infantry. So now all this does effectively means that 2 of their characters can now give them Inspiring where they previously couldn't.
Which is good. I think that's fantastic.
So it doesn't really improve the units, it improves the characters, right? Because
improves the synergy of the characters to the units.
Yeah.
So I had this one here down as probably a 1. Having these 2 characters that you can having Inspiring just provides you not just a little bit of an option, it's a massive option.
And which characters are they? So Herneas the Hunter and Ranger Captain?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
I just hate Herneas. I hate him.
But now he's inspiring all your troops. Same with the... I think it's positive. Good positive change.
Sounds good. I reckon a +1. You guys?
Yes, I agree.
Yep. All right, sweet. We'll jump into Goblins. Only the 1 change. So previously the Wingets. I know that, Benson, you love these guys. So if they were disordered, they would still be able to use the Eye of the Sky special rule. Now they will not be able to. I think it's negligible, this change, but that's my opinion.
I think for those that used Eye in the Sky, it's probably a neg 0.5 to nothing, just because you have to get that thing into combat. It's just very situational.
This feels more like a rule fix-up, like it should have already been that way, because it's like a shooting attack, and it's like they're disordered, you know?
Yeah.
Like it's just, it feels more like just making the rules a bit more consistent.
In the situation where you've caught a Winget in no man's land, you've got to charge off, you've done one wound to it, you've pinned it down, and then it backs up and then uses the Iron Sky and it takes off a unit with War Machines.
Yeah, if they roll exactly ones.
If they roll
hit,
ones.
and then re-roll and hit. Like, there's a lot of people forget there's just so many rules to jump through. Like, giving something elite is not a big deal because you need to when you've only got 2 dice that you're rolling to hit and you're hitting on 5s because you need to first roll the 1 and then roll the 5 on the reroll. Like, the odds of that are not good.
Yeah, this is a 0.
Absolutely 0. It's a rule that didn't do much to begin with.
To Nightstalkers, so they've got 2 changes, I do believe.
Okay.
So the 2 changes are to the Reaper Soul Drinker.
So does that mean that we know that it's confirmed that souls are liquid?
Yes.
Okay.
Souls are liquid.
Physics update.
Yep.
There you go.
So this guy here has gone up 15 points. So that's been pretty good. And the other change is to the ally favourite. So that's the Butchers. So these were previously -15 and -18. So they now go to 13-15 and 16-18. They now get Fury.
Now, I think this is a bit more of a change than the other one, like with the Basilean dude, just because Butchers are going to be on the ground and there can be things behind it. So wavering them, like with some shooting, just a 13 on the Horde.
Yep.
It's not unlikely.
Maybe this is a bigger change than I'd realised. Maybe you're right, actually.
Yeah, the only reason I disagree with that is because they've still got stealthy, so they're going to be hard to shoot as well.
And also, they come in armies where either the other units in the army are elfy kind of dark elfy kind of characters, which don't have stealthy and are better targets for shooting, or they come in like Nightstalker kind of armies where everything else stealthy, but everything else has lower defense. They're like in either army, they're like the worst target for your shooting weapons.
I put this one down as a -1 just purely because there's 2 changes, 2 small changes.
0.5.
Yeah, I think Hugh agrees with you. All right, so the next one, and we're going to go through these a little bit quicker now. So,
No, we're not.
No, we're not. Salamanders, the Gekatar.
I'm enjoying myself. Do you have to edit this episode or something? It seems like you're eager to get through
I do have to edit it. Dear God. Gekatar Hunters. So these guys here, they add steady aim, special rule to their both bows as well as their blowpipes.
This is a 0.5 upgrade.
0.5 upgrade should have been in there straight away.
Yeah. Yep.
Love the change.
This is a great change for them.
They had steady aim already with their blowpipes, but now you can just exchange it with that increase of points to bows.
Cool unit. Very nicely convertible unit, by the way. You can make some really cool little lizard dudes like jumping through terrain, shooting their bows. Really like this kind of unit.
The next one we've got is the Sylvan Kin, a big change here. So that's the Tree Herder can now go up to the Wiltfather like it could previously. However, now it's just got the you cannot take magical artifacts. So that's a ever so slight nerf that should have been in the book. But the big one here is that the Boss Wraiths and the Arch Wraiths, they are now Pathfinder like they probably should have been. So that's great. And the Avatar, of the Green Lady, they also get that neg 35 point option. Why I think this is, I've got this done down as a +1, but that Boss Wraith, that's their Berserker type unit, so lots and lots of attacks.
Yeah, that's a good bump. And it makes sense. Yeah.
Are you thinking of playing Sylvan Kin instead of Elves?
I've honestly thought about it. The only reason that I've talked myself out of it is because I know that there's a lot of people in Australia at the moment that are switching over to Sylvan Kin.
It's almost like Wiltfather's a bit too good. It's almost like Wiltfather maybe is a 1.5 or maybe even a 2.
No.
Just throwing it out there. I mean, why else are they switching over? What's the reason?
I think people are just waiting for an opportunity to take their Wood Elves. And I like the Elves, I just don't think they're being that good. And I think now that you've got a little bit of shenanigans with the Wiltfather and the Shamblers, and now Boss Wraiths are actually have impact, and I think that now makes it a little bit more viable for the competitive gamer.
I think as a community, an Australian community, we are more focused on like the aesthetics and being able to create an army that sort of makes sense. And running Sylvan Kin before, it just wasn't effective, but now they can take some things that should have been there. That says, all right, great, now I can bust out all my old stuff that I was working towards before. Yeah, I think it's a +1.
+1? We've got exactly what you need right here in the Twilight Kin. So they have 5 changes, I do believe, or 4 changes. So first one here is the Impalers. So they reduce in cost. So they go from, the Twilight Kin. So they go from the troops are -5 points, and the regiments are negative 10 points. And we'll just keep going with the Blade Dancers. So they are also reduced in points, but a little bit more. So the troops are negative 10 points and the regiments are negative 15 points. So that's quite big.
They're the ones that I saw on the table all the time, so that's going to be good for the Twilight Kin players.
They were overcosted though. That
Yeah.
makes sense to me. Yeah.
So this is a good change for them. The Cronebound Butchers, so they had exactly the same as Nightstalkers Butchers, so they've gone from -15, -18 to 13, 15, 16, 18, but get Fury, so we've already spoken about that, so we don't need to do that anymore. And the Summoner Crone, so yeah, they've had a slight change in the option of the Scepter of Shadows. That's now pretty much scrapped, the old version of it, and now the Wicked Miasma, which is a special rule, can also affect elf units for an additional 10 points.
I think as a whole, this group of buffs 1 to 1.5.
I'm thinking 1.5.
Blade Dancer reduction's huge. I think Impaler reduction's huge. Butcher's meh.
I love these changes.
Scepter of Shadows is really good.
Except the Butchers, which is bloody pointless. You know what? I think the Butchers change where they get that reduced, well, rather, they get the not Fearless but Fury instead. I think it's a buff. Do you know why? Because I think that some certain Pelicans that you play against are going to be like, oh, I can waver them more easily now.
So they're going to attempt to try to shoot them. Waste their shooting, sure. I reckon 1.5.
1.5.
1.5 for me as well.
Yep.
Great change.
Yep, some pretty solid changes.
All right, Undead.
All right, so we've got 5 changes. Revenant Cavs, so they've got exactly the same thing. So they go up in points quite significantly. In the troops, 10 points, regiments, 15 points, and the Horde, 25 points. The Revenant King on Great Flying Worm goes up, so exactly the same as the previous ones. So it goes down in nerve, but up in points. The Wraiths are now irregular. So this has ruffled a few feathers out in the community, but not a massive change to most people. The Lich King loses a Drain Life, but also 5 points on that cost. Necromancer, exactly the same thing. So Drain Life 5 down to 4, but 25 points down to 20.
So each point of Drain Life costs 5? Okay.
Correct. Write that down. I would say this is a firm 1. I don't think it's breaking anything.
In terms of buffing?
As a negative. I think this is... They're all nerfs.
Neg 1, right. Okay, yep. Just wanted to confirm. I think Neg 1. Yeah, it's just... Yeah.
All right, so the last change, Trident Realm, they've got 2 changes. The Depth Horrors, so they go once again from a -15 to a 13-15, but they get Fury. They've
like
also
the Butchers?
Yep,
Okay.
just like the Butchers, exactly the same as the Butchers, and their obviously -18 goes to 16-18 with Fury, and also their character or their hero, the Depth Horror Eternal, so they go from a -16 to a 14-16 with Fury as well.
Okay.
Depth Horrors were sort of played pretty heavily, and I don't think this change will stop that from happening.
I mean, they're an okay unit. I mean, hitting on 3s, but defense 3 with Ensnare, crushing 1, and Fury. They're a solid unit. I think that's fine. Now that they can be wavered, yeah, that's fine. It's more so than the Butchers because they don't have Stealthy and they've only got defense 3. So shooting is going to affect them a lot more.
So would you say this is even a negative?
Yeah, probably a neg
0.5?
0.5, yeah.
0.5.
Okay, so that's all the changes to the rules and the units. We're going to jump straight into the new characters. It's pretty important to note here, however, that not all armies got a new character in Clash of Kings 21. So for those unlucky armies that didn't get a new character, we're going to put it down as a negative 0.5 for not having an additional option. For everyone that is listening, I forgive the way that I'm going to pronounce these. I've enlisted Benson to correct every single one to make sure that I pronounce them correctly. So the first one is the Basileans new character. This is Tolliver the Seer.
Good job. Yep.
There we go. So speed 5, melee 5, range dash, defense 4. It's only got 1 attack. Its nerve is 11-13 for 150 points at height 2. It's got a ton of special characters, so individual, inspiring, special rules. Individual, inspiring, Iron Resolve. It's got Celestial Vision, so that adds 6 inches to the range of its Bane Chance and Bastion spells when targeting an angelic keyword. It's also got a special rule called Celestial Providence. After successfully casting Bastion, Tolliver may immediately cast another spell or a different spell against exactly the same target or a different target. The spells that it's got that it can cast is Banechant 3, Bastion with 2, so that's you can only take the Bastion once, so it's got 2 dice for that, and Fireball 10.
I think he's great. I think he's top notch. He inspires. He's got Iron Resolve, like standard things. Having his Banechant 18 inches, I mean, only targeting Angel Boys, but he can still target other things for 12 inches. But then being able to cast another spell. I mean, it's Banechant 3 he's got as well.
Yeah.
And then just burning something else with Fireball 10.
Yeah, it makes the Angels very, very nasty. Yeah. So for me, I would put this in as a plus 0.5 until you add in the extra stuff. So the Angels becoming like the Elohai becoming regular now. I think the frequency of this happening more and more. I think this bumps it up into a 1. As soon as you're taking an Angel focus list, a flying circus, as I would refer to this list as.
You wouldn't take him without Angels, so
agree.
yeah, that's kind of half the combination. You've got to take him.
I think genuinely, I think it'd be okay without Angels, but definitely way better with Angels. So you're right, Sellick. I would have given this guy 0.5 if it wasn't for the fact that Elohai also became regular. The fact that that's the case means this guy's a +1. He's great.
Agreed.
Alright, so we've got, for the next one is the Elves and the Sylvan Kin, so they both be able to get this one. And it's, what did we decide? Nimue, Way Dancer, I think we'll call this one, or Nimu, as I call him.
A Nimue, a Nimue, a Nimue, a Nimue, in the jungle.
Yeah, that's what I said. That was my thing on the break.
I wasn't there.
Nice. Great minds think like. Okay.
So this one here is going to be Speed 6, Melee 5, no range with Defense 4+. It's got no unit strength, it's only got 1 attack. The nerve is 12-14 at 150 points with height 2. They have special rules of Cloak of Death, individual, inspiring, but only for the verdants. It's got Stealthy and Wanderer of the Way, which basically gives you speed 10 and fly for 1 turn, and not only that, you can go at the double as well at any point and still cast, which is really, really handy because it's got 4 spells. It's got Fireball 10, Heal 4, Surge 4, and Wind Blast 5.
Hey.
I have played this character in a couple of test games. It's pretty handy, very versatile, very forgiving because of the fly, as long as you don't burn it really early. And once everything sort of gets tied up, like it always does in turn 3-4, as long as you can keep it out of trouble, that Cloak of Death really comes into its own. Value changes dramatically. I see this as a 0.5 in the Elf list, but a 1 in the Sylvan Kin list.
That's much as what I was going to say. Like, if you've got a lot of verdant units, this is a fantastic unit. If you don't have a heap of verdant units, it's like anything with inspiring X. If you don't have the X, then you're kind of wasting points on that inspiring X without being able to take advantage of it. Yeah,
one thing that I'd love to call out is the nerve. 12-14, really good nerve value for this sort of character at that price range. It's not easy to take off.
Even without the fly, their movement 6, which is easy to forget as an elf player, that is a good thing. And as an individual when you speed 6. But also, like, when you can fly with her, like, hopefully you can put her in a position to not take much damage. So a little bit of spray fire, very hard to get rid of her.
Yep. 0.5 for the elf and a solid 1 for the Sylvan Kin for me.
I agree there.
Next one is the Dwarfs, or the Free Dwarfs, sorry. The Dwarfs don't get one. So this is Bennett Colarm. Speed 5, Melee 4, no range like the others. Defense 5+. It's got no unit strength. It's got 6 attacks, 12-14 nerve, 135 points with a height of 2. Special rules: Brutal 1, just a 1 there. Crushing Strength 2. Headstrong.
Just pause there.
Yes.
It's interesting that Brutal has a 1 after it.
Interesting. I wonder if things are going to have more than 1 Brutal soon enough. Headstrong, Individual, Inspiring, and Scout.
It could just be a typo.
It could be. It's got a special rule called Forge Blessed. So this is when Bennett Colarm casts his Fireball and the attack gains that Shattering special rule as well. So it's got Fireball 10 as well as Banechant 2. Yeah.
135 points.
Defense 5, 12-14. I think it's pretty handy.
Definite combat support wizard. because he looks like he wants to cast Bane Chant when he needs to, otherwise he's punching face with Crushing 2 and Brutal.
Great.
And also factor in that the Free Dwarfs, the only other caster they've got is the Stone Priest, which is only inspiring Earthbound, so just your rock dudes, and they've got Surge 8 just built in, so then they have to pay extra for the Bane Chant, and that's all the other spells that they can get.
Yeah, but Free Dwarfs, they're all about their ranges and their shield breakers, and this guy supports both of those units really well. He supports them at range, he supports them close, and he supports them by just being inspiring. He doesn't have any negatives on his inspiration. It's just inspiring everyone. And he has Scout. This guy's amazing.
He's solid.
So do we say this as a positive one?
Definitely.
I think he's going to be in every Free Dwarf list.
So you're saying 1.5?
I'm saying 1.5.
Yeah, I can see that. So the next one we've got is the Northern Alliance, Serrakina the Ice Queen. Speed 6, melee 5, no range, defense 4. No unit strength on this one. 1 attack with 11-13 as the nerve, 130 points, and with its height of 2. Special rules, it's got Ensnare, it's got individual, very inspiring, but only to Frostbound units. It's got the Radiance of Life, but also only to Frostbound units, and a special rule of Frozen Winds. So if one or more hits are scored from this Wind Blast spell, the target enemy unit is frozen, has the Frozen special rule. It's got Surge 8 and Wind Blast 6. So 130 points, what are you thinking, Benson?
130 points for a speed 6. Yeah. Standard Ice Queen is 80 points, comes with Icy Breath 10. She also has Ensnare, Individual Master of Ice, and also very inspiring to Frostbound, but then has the option to take Bane Chant, Heal, Surge, can replace with Surge, has Wind Blast or Blizzard too. So
basically all the stuff, except this chick has Radiance of Life and Frozen Winds for quite a lot of additional points. And so Frozen Winds is just specifically for Wind Blast. So she's like a less versatile Ice Queen for more points.
Pass.
I think a 0.5 for this one. It gives you an option.
A 0.5 if you're taking lots of Ice Elementals.
Alright, so the next one we've got is in the Forces of Nature. So this is Kapoka, the Hidden Savior. So this one here is speed 5, no melee, no range. It doesn't do anything apart from be defense 4. It's got no unit strength, no attacks. Nerve is 12-14 for 145 points at height 2, but what it gives is Phalanx in an aura to all of your trees or your verdant keywords, and it also has individual, inspiring, pathfinder, scout, and stealthy with 2 spells, the heal 4 and weakness 3. So you pretty much got your hunters of your wild, your shamblers, your beasts of nature, your tree herders in various forms, and I think the druids, but whatever, for those guys, I don't think that's where it's at. I think it's all about giving this little bubble of defense 5, defense 6, that the only things that most armies can attack you with is with Cav, and as soon as you put Phalanx on all of these units, you're taking out a massive tool out of most armies.
I'd like to disagree there, just because I'm thinking of lots of units that have a decent amount of attacks with Crushing 1 built in, and then added Bane Chant, so you're wounding them, damaging them on 3s. I personally think it's more specific than what you're making out, that you're only going to be able to hitting the verdant stuff with the fast punchy things.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. But this is the kind of unit that you add to a really, really anvil-y army. There's 2 types of armies to play, listeners. Listen up to old Hoosie right now, old veteran Hoosie, and let him tell you that there's 2 kinds of armies in army games that are really boring to play against. One is a gun line. All they do is shoot. They stand there, they shoot. That's it. Boring. The other kind of army that's really boring is just the unkillable block of unkillableness. Very, very boring. Anvil of move up. It's your Nurgle, Plague Marine, Bomb, or whatever it is. It's your move up there and just never die, no matter what kind of army. And it's because it removes all the choices from your opponent. It's not a game of maneuver anymore. It's a game of dice rolls and hoping for the best, and that's very irritating. And this is the kind of unit that adds only to that kind of army. It does absolutely nothing for regular armies because it would be crap in regular armies. But in super tough anvil armies, it's just going to make them even more super tough and super anvilier.
I think my issue here is that Kapoka is in the Forces of Nature. So you've got Beasts of Nature, Forest Shamblers, and the tree herder. Really, that's the only one that's going to be infected. I don't think it's going to be affecting. I don't think it's going to be affecting the Beast of Nature because the Beast of Nature is doing its own thing.
Exactly. So it's basically a bunch of tough stuff that just vanguards up in your face and sits there and bears a tough thing. So that's the only thing that it affects.
That's not what you're going to be taking the Forces of Nature for. They got so many other options. Forest Shamblers are quite meh in that list because you can take Earth Elementals, which have the Defense 6.
Tree herders aren't though. Tree herders are very good.
Yeah, but they're tree herders. But that's 145 points just to give it Phalanx. It's just, I don't think it's as good as
and to heal it and to give other things weakness.
Scouting, inspiring, giving Phalanx as well as weakness 3, so it's super reliable.
The Scout's only there so it can move up with those Shamblers, which you're only taking one.
But it doesn't inspire Phalanx only. It doesn't inspire, Verdant only. So it gives Phalanx to Verdant only, so it gives Phalanx to all your tree herders that are goddamn unkillable to begin with, makes them even more unkillable just to irritate your opponent.
Nah.
While it sits back and bees a scouting, weakness causing, damage reducing and also healing pest and continues to inspire at the same time in a unit.
I think you're putting too much emphasis on the Phalanx because I would rather take a Unicorn with heal 5, which is cheaper.
I think this one here is a 1 for me. I think it's actually going to create a really core block, and I think it will shape armies.
I'm going to vote 0.5.
It's not because it's an overpowered thing. It totally isn't. It isn't at all. It just makes an unfun army more unfun.
If you take that list. Yeah.
It's because that's all it does. It's not useful in another list.
So are you going 0.5, Hugh, or 1?
I think it's a 0.5 change, but I dislike the 0.5 change.
Okay, so we'll jump on to the Ogres. So I pronounce this one terribly. Nomagarok? How do I go?
It's close enough.
So speed 6, melee 4+, no range, defense 5. It's got a 1 unit strength because it is a large infantry. It's got 5 attacks, 12-14 nerve for 140 points.
5 attacks, bloody hell.
Height 3. It's got special rules, brutal, crushing strength 1, inspiring and nimble, and it is an ogre warlock.
Which is standard as the other ogre warlocks.
It also has bloodlust. Any friendly core unit with that heal gets vicious as well. So pretty much similar to 2nd edition, I think it was. So it's got Bane Chance 3, heal 4, lightning bolt 4. We've seen his character before.
My only question is this character 140 points because ogres aren't good enough, or because a character as good as this actually is the value of 140 points? Because this is a significantly better unit.
Nomag is a solid bump to the ogre army because ogres don't have Bane Chant or heal normally, and being able to bump the heal up to a +3 is going to keep your siege breakers just super healthy. Definitely +1.
So I'm just listening to what you guys are saying, I would even argue a 1.5.
If anything in this entire book gets +2, it's this character.
Yeah, bump my rating up because I don't think any ogre army is
no ogre army
not going to take this. You're always going to see Nomag in a list.
Okay, so it's an auto include, so that's what we would be referring to as
Lightning
a +2.
Bolt 7 for 140 points with inspiring, with nimble, claiming things, hitting things with 5 attacks. That crushing 1 with brutal. This guy does everything.
So we'll put it in as a +2, and we will jump onto the Trident Realm. So this next one's very easy to say. So this one here is the Kryoshk.
You got it wrong.
No, I didn't.
It's Kai Rock.
No, I nailed it.
It's Sean Connery saying rocks. Kai Rock.
The Hunter of the Deep is what we'll refer to him as. Speed 7. So he is a quick Trident Realm with melee 3+, no range, defense 4, no unit strength, 5 attacks. Nerve is 12-14 like the others. Points 140 with a height of 2. Special rules: crushing strength 1, ensnare, individual and inspiring, but only inspiring to cephalopods and waterbound units. Also has scout and stealthy. A lot of special rules there. Has another special rule called the Hunter in the Deep. He gains vicious, melee and double attacks versus large cav, monsters and titans. Also has a spell, Lightning Bolt 3. What do we think?
Karaksh is in a weird position. I don't know what to make of them. I mean, Crush 1, 5 attacks, hitting on 3s is fine. Speed 7 is fantastic. Inspiring, cephalopod and waterbound. I mean, you'll be having your water elementals, and what else is cephalopod? Thule. I suppose Thules are okay. I guess they're a decent berserker unit. Then you got the Rivergan.
It's cool that he hunts stuff.
Yeah, but 5 attacks.
No, but 10 attacks. Double attacks versus large cavalry.
Yeah, but I'm also thinking then they'll fight back and kill it.
Yeah, he's only 12-14, defense 4.
And with Crush 1.
Yeah, he's a very confusing guy. Like, honestly, I find Trident Realm confusing at the best of times, since they're the only army in the game that I haven't played, as confessed in the previous episode. So even on paper, I can't really make a decision on him. I find him a very confusing human being.
It's not a human being, it's a cephalopod. I think Kairosh should have like an extra crushing or crushing 3 against the large cav monsters Titans, because it's a hunter, just getting the vicious and double attacks against things that are usually defense 5 or 6. No, defense 5, I suppose.
5, yeah.
It's not going to do a whole lot.
I think in our rating system, it's going to provide an option, but it's not going to be something that's going to change the army.
Yeah, 0.5.
0.5. Alright, so the next one is the Forces of the Abyss. So Basusu's brother, most likely, Zazusu, the Betrayer. So this one here is a large infantry, speed 6, melee 4, range 4, defense 4. It's got 1 unit strength with 7 attacks. The nerve is 1214 at 110 points, nice and cheap, with a height of 3. 3 special rules. It's got Fury, Nimble, and Regeneration 5+, and a special rule called Betrayal. So for each friendly unit within 6 inches, he gains an additional +1 value to his lightning bolt, up to a maximum of 3, and all friendly units within 6 inches of him then receive 1 point of damage. So he sort of hurts all of his friends there.
So it kind of takes the essence and boosts the lightning
And he
bolt.
starts off with Lightning Bolt 5, so he can go up to Lightning Bolt 8, which is pretty nasty.
110 points, though, doesn't inspire.
No.
No, he's doesn't have the versatility of most of the units we've led so far.
More of a combat character.
I actually think he's still excellent. He still claims objectives. He shoots a lot of lightning bolts. And the other thing is, you got to really read that betrayal rule carefully, friends. Like, it's a challenging one, right? Because he gains +1 lightning bolt to a maximum of 3, full stop. All friendly units within 6 inches then receive 1 point of damage.
Excluding Zazusu.
So for each friendly unit within 6 inch, he gets +1. And then all friendly units within 6 receive a point of damage. So that means that if you say have 5 friendly units within 6 inches, he gets +3.
Yeah.
But they all get that.
I think it should have been for each unit that is damaged, it adds to your lightning bolt.
No, I like this more. I think it means like...
I don't like that it hurts so much. Oh, possibility to hurt so much.
Well, only if you position him poorly, right? Like how hard can it be to not position him in like 5 or 6
but I feel
units
like,
in the range?
Like that's what it's supposed to be doing. So he's kind of drawing the energy from all these other units around to empower the lightning bolt, but then it's kind of capped to how much it can
shoot. To
shoot.
an extent, because otherwise you have this weird situation where people put like 1 million troops next to him and he does like lightning bolt 1 million or something. Like,
I would like him better if the rules were clarified, just because a standard Abyssal Warlock has Firebolts, which is 18-inch piercing 1 using his standard attacks, and this guy's a Warlock as well, so having 7 instead of 5 Firebolts would be pretty good.
Yeah, honestly, that's the biggest weakness of him, is that the standard Warlock is so good.
But that needs to be clarified, because they both got range 4, except Zazusu doesn't have the Firebolts in his rules.
That's alright. I'm sure it's just a typo in our version that we've got. Benson, I will hand over for you for the Abyssal Dwarf 2 characters, because I know that you're actually quite fond of
I love
these
these guys. Yep. Loved them in 2nd edition. I thought they were fantastic little fluff characters, and took them as often as I could.
Dwarfs got 2 units. They weren't good enough. They really needed 2 more unique units, because the unique units were so weak, and Abyssal Dwarf, no one played them. So thank you, Mantic, for this. I really appreciate it.
Yes, thanks, Mantic, for bringing back these 2 characters who I loved. So we have Dravak Dulkin. He is an Ironcaster, basically. So Spellcaster 2, Speed 4, because he's Dwarf. Melee 4, no range with Defense 5. 2 attacks, 12-14 nerf at 155 points. He's got Crushing 1 because of Dwarf. Individual Inspiring, but he has Possession. His old mate Infinok, which is a big greater golem, which we'll get to in a second. So unless Infinok is engaged or disordered, Dravak can use Infinok's line of sight to cast spells. So he can measure from Infinok's leader point instead of Dravak's. He's got Fireball 12, Heal 3 to Hellforged only, and Surge 12, which is massive. It's quite a bit different from 2nd edition, where Dravak would fireball things and then whatever damage he caused would heal Infinok. So it's more versatile with the targets that he can cast spells too, because of Infinok's range. And we'll just combine that with Infinok. Big Boy Golem, Speed 6, Melee 4, no range with Defense 6, 12 attacks, Unit Strength 1, Fearless 19 at 255 points and height 6. So he's a big boy. He's Brutal 1 again, Crushing 4, Shambling Strider, and Vicious in melee. And he has Bound Soul. So as long as Dravuk's alive, Infernock can get Inspiring. Or he inspires himself. That's his little bump there over the standard Golem. So you'd want to take both of these two together. Taking them separately, you're kind of losing out on a lot there. So Dravuk casts his spells through the eyes of Infernock. And Infernock becomes Inspiring.
Yeah, 410 points. Like you're never going to take him in isolation.
No.
I might consider taking Infernock in isolation. I think it's really cool that they have two units that work together, not specifically Abyssal Dwarfs, just any army, having these kind of like the homie unit that benefit one another that you can take individually if you want, but probably it's not great if you do. And in fact, if most of the time people will take them in the pair, but then you need 2 unlocks to do it. I love that. I think that's really cool.
The difference between Infernock and a standard Obsidian Golem is basically Infernock gets Brutal and 1 extra Crushing, so that's 20 points more.
Yeah, which is, I think, well priced. Just a 0.5 upgrade. I think that, as we've sort of mentioned, you're going to take both of these, which is a pretty big dedication of points. So I don't think it's a +1. It's not going to be something that everyone's going to take.
I think, yeah,
0.5.
It's probably a 0.5 buff, yeah.
All right, so we'll jump on to Nightstalkers then. So this one here is another easy to say one. So this is Enisra.
Sorry, what was that, Sellick?
That was Enisra.
Sorry, I thought you sneezed.
Yeah, same. The Wailing Sneeze Shadow. So this one here.
Esanishra? Is it Esanishra?
Yeah, you should have done this one. That was just my brain processing the rest of the letters there. Either way, this person, the Wailing Shadow, is speed 10, melee 3+, no range with defense 5. It's got no unit strength with 5 attacks. It is fearless 13 with 160 points at height 2. It has crushing strength 3, so quite tough, with dread, as well as fly, individual, mighty, mind thirst, stealthy, and strider. And it has the spell Enthrall 7, so pretty handy. We did mention that there was a special character with an additional Enthrall. Now, the only difference with the Wailing Shadow's Enthrall is the special rule Beguilement. So, where normally you would enthrall something towards you and it would stop 1 inch away, with the Wailing Shadow here, it will go into combat with you and it will count as if you charged it. So that's pretty handy with your 5 attacks at Crushing Strength 3. So yeah, what do we think about this? 160 points, it is a lot of points, but at the same time you're flying around doing whatever you want to do.
I think she's pretty good. 160 points for Crush 3. And Dread. And it flies.
Yeah, but it's only 5 attacks. Crush 3 is only as good as the number of attacks you've got, right?
Yeah, but hitting on 3 is Crush 3. You're adding
Crush 3, so you're very likely to get 2 or 3 wounds.
Plus Dread.
Don't get me wrong, that's great. Like, that's good. But all I'm saying is Crush 3 is not the same on something with 8 attacks as it is with something with 5. Like, no, it does make it.
But we are talking about 160 points.
Dread fly. Yeah, but 160 points, yeah, it is quite a bit.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool option, I think, and I think it complements the Nightstalker list quite well.
I don't think Beguilement is going to see much actual use because you have to be close to it and then enthrall it.
At 7.
Then charge. It's a bit.
But there is other enthrall. So how I sort of see that element working is you will enthrall from another unit and then use this one here to finish it off to get it into combat with you. Even then, like, do you want a -13 unit in combat? I'm not sure. Like, you'd have to be very selective with who you're getting in combat with.
In typical Nightstalker style, she's very expensive and not that tough.
I suppose as Nightstalkers go, she's pretty tough because she's defense 5. Most of the Nightstalker stuff is defense 4 to kind of account for that. Stealthy.
That's true.
And Strider, yeah, this is a 0.5.
Yep, a 0.5 for me as well. So we're going to jump over to Goblins, and Benson, I know that you've used this character before and you've got some thoughts, so I'll let you have a chat about Grupp.
Sure. So Grupp Longnail, I think she's pretty cool. So speed 6, which is slightly faster than your standard Goblin. Melee 3, which is also slightly better than the standard Goblin. Defense 4, which is average for a Goblin. For attacks at Fearless 12 for 90 points. Blast D3 on her attacks, Crushing Strength 1, Duelist, and Snare and Individual. So she's got this special, which is part of her Infinity Gauntlet type gloves that she's got. Full Gore. So basically when you attack in melee, whenever you hit, that unit then suffers weakness. So it's a -1 modifier when they try to damage, and it doesn't combine with the weakness spell, so you just got to keep that in consideration. So, Ensnare, as well as this foe weakness thing that she does in combat, makes her pretty survivable in combat, even though she's defense 4. And the ability is to spike the damage if she's hitting something with individual, because then it's 8 attacks with Blast D3, sort of like Grokagamok from the Ogres, just not as crushing. I found it to be pretty good for 90 points.
She's like a Ratkin assassin.
Yeah, exactly, but better.
Except she has Ensnare and Blast D3, and it's just better. Yeah. So yeah, she's like a Ratkin assassin, but better. So I'm all over it. She sounds awesome to me. Can anyone explain the Fulgur reference to me? Like, what does that mean?
It's part of the story. I think that it's kind of like a warning. But what I don't understand is part of the background there is that it shoots lightning. So she found that she put these gloves on and then she started zapping lightning about the place in this dwarven hold. And then she escaped by blasting lightning through the walls to make a hole to get out. But she doesn't have any spells, but she's spellcaster 1.
It feels as though it should give lightning bolt instead of just weakness.
Yeah. I feel like she should be able to cast lightning something, even if it's lightning 2 or if it's lightning at range 12 or something.
So I reckon just a 0.5, just another option there.
Yeah, it's a 0.5. I mean, she's only speed 6, but if she does get into an individual, she can put out some hurt. I think she's a really good assassin.
So we've got 4 more to go. So we'll lock that one down as a 0.5.
But 1.5 in my heart.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, so this one here, Sebek Ray, the Accursed, speed 5, melee 5, no range with a defense of 4+, no unit strength with 1 attack. It is fearless 13 at 155 points with a height of 2. So it's got individual and very inspiring, and it has reanimator. So for every friendly skeleton within 6 inches, you can roll 1 dice that you fail to hit with Drain Life, Fireball, Hex, Heal, Surge, Weakness, and Wind Blast to a maximum of 2. And it also has the Glory of the Mighty Dead. So after casting Heal on that friendly core unit, this unit may immediately cast the Surge on the same target. So it has Heal 5, as Surge 8 as well as the Heal 5. So pretty handy, I think, for 155 points.
Very inspiring is also very handy.
Very. I think this one here just a 0.5. I don't think they need this character, but it's a character that fits in quite well. It doesn't sort of stand out as a.
Yeah, it's an extreme. It's another unique unit that's above the curve for Ember of Dust, and in fact, it puts him in a spot, to my opinion, because this replaces your average kind of lichy character, which you might take, because he's just better. It's just better. He heals as well as surging at the same time, and then he has these other reroll things going on and whatever else, and he's very inspiring still for a lower cost than a lich with a bunch of spells.
And also consider that if you just hire or put in your list a Cursed High Priest, which is essentially what this is, with Heal 5 and Surge 8 as the additional options, they're sitting at 150 points. So you're paying 5 points for very inspiring and the Glory of Mighty Dead. So
it's another one of those units that just removes the reason to take the unique, the non-unique options in the Emperor Dust list. Yeah.
So you reckon this one goes in as a 1 then, if it's doing that?
Yeah, it's basically auto. If you're taking a High Priest, you're taking this person instead. That's a +1.
Done. We'll jump across to the maddest of all the orcs, Ulfgar the Mad. But speed 5, melee 4, no range with a defense of 4. No unit strength naturally. Attacks 1, and it is fearless 12 with 120 points at a height of 2. It is a spellcaster 3, not that that matters too much at the moment. Has some special rules of crushing strength 1, individual and inspiring, as well as Ulfgar's Mad Magic. For each friendly core heavy infantry regiment or heavy infantry horde or legion within 6 inches, it increases that die roll once again for Banechant and Fireball by 1 up to a maximum bonus of not 3 but 11.
That's an odd number.
It is an odd number.
Why 11 anyway?
I wonder how they come up with that. Magic of the Bloody Knife Tribe is another special rule that it has. So for each successful hit with Banechant, the target receives Leech Life +1 to a maximum.
Life Leech?
Life Leech! I can't get it. Sorry, listeners. Up to a maximum of 3+ until the start of the next turn. So it starts off, however, with Banechant 3 and Fireball 7. 120 points.
Up to a possible Banechant 11. Is it? Banechant 14.
He either nukes a unit for Fireball
18.
It's easy to think of him like, Fireball 18. But no, you're never going to.
It's very rare.
So
have
many
11
units.
heavy infantry units within 6
So we'll say conservatively 4, maybe.
4. I think that's exactly how you're going to use it. It is just there to Bane Chant and Life Leech and provide Inspiring, and that's it.
And Fireball a million on the rare occasion.
Oh, the fact that it's Inspiring as well on top of that is very good for his
I think it's a
points
+1.
Yep. Yeah, +1 for the Orcs, I do believe. And we will jump into the Ratkin now. I'll probably go for Benson. You're probably the best suited for the Ratkin.
Yep. Let's go.
Line, Slander, Riverside. This is Twitch Kinnear.
Keenia.
Keenear.
I can't even say the name properly.
Kinnear. He's a big into canoes. He's a Kinnear. He's a canoeist. So he's keen of the ear. Speed 6, melee 5+, defense 4+. I'm excited, right? I'm excited about Twitch. He also has unit strength diddly do, attack 1, nerve -12, fearless, and 120 points. So individual inspiring guy. He has Bane Chant 3 and Hex 3. So then he's also got the thing that makes him distinctly different is if Twitch Keen Ear successfully casts Bane Chant.
What's the name of this ability?
Eye of the Abyss. Eye of the Abyss, maybe. The Abyss watching over us all. If Twitch Keen Ear successfully casts Bane Chant, the target unit may, after rolling to hit and to damage in the melee phase, discard all damage. So after hitting and damaging, you can discard the lot and start again. It even says the word start again, which is unnecessary but useful. Roll to hit and to damage again. The second result stands. Re-rolling in this way must take place before testing for nerve, which is critical, or rolling any other attacks from other units in the same melee. So it's a weird one. So
if you rolled crap, you'd try it again.
Right? You roll crap, you try again. It's exactly in between like that kind of 140 mark where you've got a Warlock with Inspiring Talisman and Bane Chant 3. Now, the difference is that Twitch is 20 points cheaper, which is quite critical, and has a slightly better nerve, but then also has Hex 3. Then the Warlock has Lightning Bolt 3. Lightning Bolt 5, sorry. So I'd say on balance, without taking into the Eye of the Abyss rule, the Warlock is better. Even for 20 points, exchanging Hex 3 for Lightning Bolt 5, I think most people would agree that is generally better because Hex is useful as a bloody sourdough loaf in a bloody flood.
Well, Bane Chant, though.
But Bane Chant is, but they've already got Bane Chant. They've both got Bane Chant.
But that's what you're aiming for. Bane Chant 3 to do the Eye of the Abyss.
Yeah.
That's the only thing.
True. You're right. But the point is, when you're comparing it to a Warlock, they've both got the Bane Chant, and you can only Bane Chant when you're in combat, right? Like when you're in a combat situation. The rest of the time, what are you doing? What Twitch is doing is casting Hex. What a Warlock is doing is casting Lightning Bolt 5. Lightning Bolt 5, better, therefore 20 extra points, notwithstanding a tiny bit of nerve. So really, what you're looking at here is the Eye of the Abyss. Now, also worth considering is for 75 points, you can almost tell that I like Ratkin. For 75 points, you can take your good old-fashioned Rat Flag Waver friend, who has your Looted Insatiable Darkness. So he's only got Bane Chant 2, but he's significantly cheaper, 45 points less. So if you just want to hang out, inspire, and cast Bane Chant, he's your man. If you want someone to have a bit more versatility in Lightning Bolt, the Warlock's your man. So really, you're paying significant points here for this Eye of the Abyss. So how do you make this Eye of the Abyss work for you? If Twitch Keen Ear, so if he makes it, so first he has to cast Bane Chant on the unit. Very likely. Bane Chant 3, it only fails about, 1 in 8 times? So 7 out of 8 times, statistically speaking, you're going to get your Bane Chant 3 off on this unit. Happy days. However, 1 in 8 times, which isn't that few, you just won't get to choose anyway. Then you've got to fluff your hit and wound rolls to the point where you look at their nerve. I don't know, maybe I need a 7 to break them. In that circumstance, do you reroll? Not sure. It's a bit difficult, right? Depends how many attacks and stuff you got. But I think the key target for this kind of thing is like a shock troop unit.
Yeah.
So you're hitting a shock troop unit, you're Bane Chanting them, making them hit a lot of goals or whatever. But what I want listeners to understand is that this reads as really good. It reads as really good being able to re-roll your entire attack.
It's insurance.
It's insurance. You're absolutely right. It is insurance. But you need to be in a spot where A, your unit's in combat. B, you've cast Bane Chant on them. C, you've hit and wounded poorly enough that you think you're going to fluff the nerve roll, but you haven't rolled the nerve roll yet. You don't actually know that. C, you think that the re-roll is actually going to improve your result. Every now and again, you will fluff with your shock troops, but they do also have 30 attacks.
Even a standard dude, like you're not expecting them to do much, and you do, okay, so I do 2 damage. Bugger it. Let's do it again, and this time I might get 6 or 7.
Yeah, you might get worse. You might get less.
But you're only re-rolling if it's a poor roll.
It's not like, hey, I have the Abyss, increase your wounds by 2, or like, you know, give yourself double brutal for 1 turn. If it was brutal 2 for 1 turn, it would be better. That's what I'm throwing out there. No, it would absolutely be better, because in that circumstance where you need to roll a 7, if you need to roll a 7, you now need to roll a 5. Would you re-roll the dice, or would you just take the +2? I think
it's all about the stinker. Like as Benson said, it's that insurance. And I think what you're saying, Hugh, is that you could still roll worse, and you're going to get into some really tricky mental positions because you don't know what the nerve roll is. You're not sure what other units are rolling for their damage, so it's really going to be a gamble. So that gamble is going to bite you quite often, as well as it's going to help you.
It sounds like it's really going to be a gamble, but I think in practice what you're going to find is that most of the time you just don't get a chance to use it, because you're not in a position where it is a gamble. You're like, oh, well, I need a 4 to roll them off. I'm not going to re-roll. Or you're like, I'm going to need a 10 to roll them off. I might as well re-roll. Oh, look, I re-rolled and now I need a 9.
Yeah. I find that a lot of the times when I have a unit that's, it's kind of sort of 50-50 to go in, I roll in and I do, it feels like it's underwhelming. So I do 6 damage when I was expecting, I don't know, 10. I'm going to re-roll that because I feel like, all right, next time it's going to do a lot better than that.
Yeah, I know. That's exactly what it's meant to make you think. But the statistical reality is that's only going to happen 1 in 4 games. The rest of the time, I think, is you're just going to you're going to get him anyway, or you're not going to get him, and then you reroll and don't get him still. And effectively, that rule has done nothing. Unless that rule turns a non-successful break, or what would have been a non-successful break, into a successful break, it's done nothing. That's something that you need to understand. Like, unless it breaks a unit, it hasn't done anything except make you feel better about the roll,
which is good.
You know who this would be really good for? This would be good for Spoon.
This would be a good Spoon roll for sure.
Yeah, I think Twitch is going to be fantastic for games on UB.
1 in 10 games, he's going to be a rock star where he gets to re-roll some amazingly bad roll, and you're going to win anyway as a result of it. Most of the time, that rule won't even come up, in which case you're paying points for a rule you're not using, and you should be taking a different unit.
All right, so we're putting it in as a 0.5 then?
0.5.
All right, sweet.
Yes, okay. Thank you, guys. I appreciate you humouring me for that massive time.
No, that's okay. We know that you're...
We'll just cut it all out in the edit. That's right.
It's just like Ratkin. We'll get Benson to re-record it. That's fine.
Yeah.
So, Benson, I'll get you to finish off with the Undead, mate.
Zwinok Iceblood. So, Spellcaster 2, height 2, speed 5, melee 4, no range, defense 5. 1 attack with a fearless 13 at 120 points. So, Zwinok has Aura, elite, melee 4, skeleton infantry only. Individual and inspiring. So they also have a special rule, the Outsider. So when Zwinok is included in an undead army, you can't take any other unique heroes. Zwinok or nothing. Fireball 10, Surge 8 are the spells that they come with. Meh. 120 points, Fireball, Surge 8, meh.
I think this is almost the definition of a 0.5. So this is somebody that comes in and it provides like a cool little option of a themed list with skeleton infantry. But that's it. Like that. Yep. That's all he does. He inspires them. He doesn't do anything too much. Like Fireball 10 and Surge 8, it's sort of like it's required.
He very slightly buffs a unit a list that isn't good to begin with. So heaps of skeletons, spearmen and stuff, the kind of list that isn't very effective in today's meta. It very slightly buffs that, and I love that. That's fantastic because, I mean, God, I'll probably take him because I've got heaps of skellies, which I like the models of and all that kind of stuff. But, like, is he a game changer?
No.
Oh, yeah, you're right. He's a 0.5.
The Outsider rule just means you can't take Lady alone, which I don't usually see on the table. Or Morgoth. I mean, meh. It's 120 points for a slightly better Necromancer.
Yeah, an inspiring Surger. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That gives a passive
He's
bonus.
a bit boring is his only problem. He's no Twitch Keen.
Nice.
He doesn't have
it doesn't make you go on a rant. That's
abilities that we could spend 15 minutes ranting about.
No, definitely. We'll lock him in as a 0.5.
0.5,
I think,
definite
on
0.5.
that.
Yep.
And there we have it. That's it.
Hey, we did it. Nice.
Wait, so like, you sure you don't want to spend another 15 minutes talking about Twitch Keen here?
or Kinnear? No, we don't.
Kinnear.
And there we have it. all the winners. We've sort of gone through absolutely everything we can. The Sylvan Kin coming in at first with a +3. The Elves and the Ogres coming in at second with 2.5 positive there. And a big tie for third place in the Forces of Nature, the Forces of the Abyss, Free Dwarfs, Twilight Kin with a +2. The losers, in our system at least, is the Kingdoms of Men, Order of the Brother Mark, and the League of Rortia coming in at -1. And coming in at second last place, I guess, is the Dwarves, Undead Herd, and the Order of the Green Lady at -0.5. It must be said, from a list build perspective, however, it's probably the Undead and the Empire of Dust that are going to feel the impacts of this the most. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It definitely makes all of this worthwhile. And leave a comment if you agree or disagree. On that note, we'll say goodbye. See you next time, guys.
Thanks, guys. We'll speak to you soon.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning in with my team. Make sure you follow on Facebook and Twitter. Yes, indeed, more than a game, it's a lifestyle. Yes, sir. Hope you realize that the math hammer doesn't work. We give the people what they desire. Australian Wargaming Podcast, direct misfire. You don't want to miss a thing. Yeah, we got plenty more. If you're ready, let's go. Stay tuned, that's for sure. Hey.